Welcome to the Wheelbarrow Profits podcast, where you get multifamily investing made real. Learn from top players in the real estate investment world as they share their secrets with you and discover proven strategies on apartment investing that actually work. To learn more about Wheelbarrow Profits, visit jakeandgino.com, your one-stop shop for everything multifamily. Now to your hosts, Jake and Gino.
Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Profits podcast, here with my co-host, best-selling author and multifamily land baron, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Jake, I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Today, Gino and I are going to introduce our multifamily investing framework and also discuss how a recent deal fell into our lap. This show will identify ways to find deals. This podcast specifically aligns with the buy right portion of our framework. So, Gino, let's jump right in. Jake,
I like when you say that word framework. When I first started investing, I was just throwing darts on a wall, and I was hoping stuff would just stick on the wall. And, I was struggling for the first few years. When I got together with you, we had no framework. We didn't know what we were looking at. We did our first deal together, Jake. Remember that first deal?
Courtyard Cottages.
25 units. I don't know how we found it. We struggled, but we found it. We saw something in multifamilies that we just loved. We stuck with it. Then the next deal. Next deal was what, Jake?
Hickory Hills.
Fell in love with that one too. 36 units. So at that time, I saw a pattern emerging. I like the term that you phrased, mom and pop apartments. I want all investors out there to hear this. It's really important when you start out to pick a niche, pick a type of real estate investing that you like. There's no right and wrong answer for this. Me and Jake love multifamily apartments. I could sit on this call and talk an hour with you about the benefits of multifamily apartments. They create a ton of wealth. They generate a ton of cash flow. The tax implications are wonderful because you can depreciate the stuff, something called cost segregation. It's just an awesome vehicle to create wealth. You're starting out, it might be a little daunting. Guys like to start out as wholesalers. They like to start out as fix and flippers. They like to start lease to own. So many different strategies. My advice to you is pick one strategy, spend a month, 2 months, 3 months immersing yourself in that strategy and just really, really diving deep down and just learn that strategy. What do you think, Jake?
Well, I think you bring up a great point because we identified, okay, multifamily is going to be our niche, but then we broke it down after we started getting into some of these smaller multifamily deals to, wow, we have a even more specific niche. We focus on mom and pop owners. So after we started getting into some of these deals, the brokers knew, well, if I got a mom and pop group that's running a property into the ground, they're going to call us. So it actually made it easier on our network to identify good projects for us as well. So I think starting out, definitely pick a niche and stick with it and ride that baby because that's what, basically essentially what we have done, and it's worked out very well for us.
And that's the next point that I like to bring up. You talk about mom and pop apartments. We niched it down even further. We became even more specific, which is what happens when you write a business plan. You take the time to really focus on a plan. We like to focus on these properties. They're called C properties, the C classification. They're older properties, 30, 40 years old. They have a lot of deferred maintenance on them, but they cash flow like crazy. We love them because they just generate a lot of cash flow. A lot of guys like to be in nicer neighborhoods, which would be considered B properties, built within the last 15 to 20 years, and A properties, which are newer properties coming on the market. Me and Jake like to focus on the C properties, and we like to reposition them and try to bring them up to a C plus or even a B minus, where you're raising the rents, you're getting better tenants in there. We love to do that. That's one of our strategies, actually.
Yep, and we're doing it in blue-collar areas with a lot of retail. So many of our folks work at manufacturing facilities or restaurants and retail places, Walmart, et cetera. So we even that's our specific niche tenant as well.
So Jake mentioned the framework. The first part of our framework is called the buy right part. I love the idea that Jake brought about the name Wheelbarrow Profits. Just envision a wheelbarrow with 3 legs, actually 2 legs and a wheel. 3 parts to it. All 3 of those parts have to be sturdy and stable, or as like Jake likes to say, it'll just tumble over and you'll lose your investment. The buy right is one of the back legs. The manage right is the wheel, which is in constant motion. Managing is always a day-to-day operation. Don't manage the property, your asset's not going to do well. Buy right, once you buy the property right, that's more or less fixed. And also, the third part is the finance right. You get the financing done on the property, you're going to have a kick-butt investment. So you need to have all three of those to have a really great investment. So in the buy right portion, what we did, we were just talking about our strategy and our niche. What does it mean to buy a property right? There's so many different ways of defining buying a property right. I've learned in the last 15 years, most intelligent real estate investors will tell you you make money when you buy the property. Now, what does that mean? Guys out there buying duplexes, tris, quads, eightplexes, single-family homes, there's a lot of competition in these properties. And if you're not I would say a significant player, you're going to come to the party a little late. You need to buy these properties 75 to 80%, at market. So if a property is $100,000, you're really looking to buy the property at $75,000 to $80,000, 20% below market. So you're buying the property right. Not only are you buying the property right, you want to buy it when it's cash flowing. Cash flow is king in this business. If you can't cash flow on a property, our first rule of thumb is never buy a property that negatively cash flows. And don't let anybody tell you, 3 years from now it's going to be worth X amount of money. It does not matter. You might not, and you probably will not make it 3 years from now. So never, ever buy a property that negatively cash flows. Our second rule of thumb, and I think this is even more important when you buy a property on actual numbers. You let the broker and the seller let you look at these pro formas. Jake and I like to refer to these pro formas as rosy predictions. It's great if you want to look at that and say, it's going to happen, yeah, but I'm not going to buy in those numbers. And if you want me to buy in those numbers, get the property to perform in those numbers, and then I'll buy it on that actual number. If not, whatever the property is doing the last 12 months, trailing profit and loss, last 12 months of trailing revenue and expenses, that's what you buy it on. And, a lot of things happen when you're buying a property from these owners, mom and pop owners. They're going to have revenue that's below what you're going to be able to pump that revenue up. Their expenses are going to actually be higher. So what we like to do is we like to buy properties on actual numbers. First rule of thumb we like to look at is a cash-on-cash return. Cash-on-cash returns are great. We like to look at a 10% actual cash-on-cash return. That's really important for us. So when we buy it at an actual 10%, when we get that property rocking and rolling, that actual cash-on-cash can go up to 30 and 35% annually easily once you start raising those rents and you start lowering those expenses. The second one we like to look at is we like to look at cap rates. Smaller properties, duplexes, tris, and quads, not so much with cap rates. Cap rates aren't that important in those properties. When you get into the larger ones, cap rates get to be important. Basically, a cap rate is just a rate of return on a property. You're looking at cap rates on C properties. We like to look at 8 caps. Now, when the market starts getting hot, as it's starting to get now, cap rates will drop. There's an inverse relationship. When your property prices go up, cap rates drop, which means properties get more expensive and your cap rate lowers, your rate of return lowers. Now, let me give you a little tidbit here. There's something called a risk premium. A risk premium is basically the spread between a cap rate and a 10-year T-bond. Back in 2008, that risk premium, that spread was so small because cap rates were so small back in 2007, 2008. The savvy investors knew the party was over. They saw cap rates were 4 and 5%, and the risk and the 10-year T-bond was 2%. Their risk premium was 2. They don't want to invest when they get a risk premium of 2. There's too much risk involved to only get that 2% return. When cap rates are 8 and 9 and the T-bond is 2%, then your risk premium is 6 and 7. It's more likely that you're going to want to invest in that type of environment. So savvy investors back in 2007 and 2008 knew the party was over. They pulled their money out. And the last one that I like to talk about, which I think is really important, is called the debt service coverage ratio, DSCR. Banks like to look at this number and take a look at this number and make sure that you have enough money coming in to service your debt. Basically, banks like to look at a 1.2 debt service coverage ratio. Jake and I like to look at a 1.3 and above.
And a quick note, all of these different calculations can actually be utilized through different calculators that Gino and I have on the Wheelbarrow Profits site. So one of the nice things is we actually have calculators that will do all this work for you. So if it sounds like a lot, don't worry. There's easy calculators out there that can take care of that this stuff for you.
Well, That's one thing I want people to realize is they can reach out to us, Jake. Go on our Facebook page, email us, have any questions on any of these, functions or any of these formulas. We'd love to share them with you. So why don't we jump into the first deal that we had, actually, the Courtyard Cottages, really quick, and just talk to them, Jake, about what our mom and pop apartment was and what attracted us to that property.
Oh, sure. Well, one of the things is that we looked for, I don't know if it was 18 months or 2 years, but we were getting rejected constantly. It just seemed like, the pie in the sky. Multifamily was, a insider's club, and it wasn't going to work out for us. So we were putting in offers left and right, analyzing every deal, and they just didn't make sense. And so finally, I stumbled across this one deal. I called the broker. I said to Gino, it looks like the numbers work. What are we missing here, right? That was sort of the way I was feeling at the time. And I spoke to the broker, and he said, look, this is an older couple, guy's in his 60s, had some health problems, and they're just burnt out. They don't want to do it anymore. Their manager quit on them. They had a resident manager working, and the wife was there taking care of the property. They were having some issues with drugs. The property did not look that good, but the numbers worked. I mean, the thing was cash flowing. I don't know at the time if we bought it was a 9 or 10 cap, but I mean, the thing was cranking out some serious cash, and not rent checks. I mean, they were literally paying cash every week on this thing. So it was very unprofessional. And so mom and pop couple, they had a ton of deferred maintenance. They were handing out keys like it was an old motel. They had weekly renters. It's just everything that you could be doing wrong, they were doing it. They were commingling the cash with other businesses. So they said, well, we don't really have a P&L because the money's going into the bank account and there's other businesses. We don't really track this stuff, but we know how much we're bringing in every month. So I said to Gino, I'm like, this is crazy. These guys, no way. I wasn't buying it. I thought there was something wrong there. So finally I broke down and I talked to my uncle about it. And I was saying to him, what do I do in this case? They're saying they don't have the numbers, but they know what they're bringing in every month. And his recommendation was just go door knocking, go door to door to these people and ask them what they're paying in rent every month. And that's what we did. And we got a ballpark idea of their expenses. And it was like, wow, this thing really, do you remember what the cash on cash return is at the time we bought it, Gino?
I don't remember because a lot of it, we weren't really collecting weekly. Some guys were paying, some guys weren't paying. But the number was up there. The cash on cash, I think it was like 15%.
It was definitely up there.
It was great. You know why it was great, Jake? Because we did the owner financing also. So this is our first deal where we got a lot of stuff on our plate. The property does not look good. The owners were very nice owners, but they had no numbers. So it was hard for the bank to come in and say, okay, what's going on here? What are you guys doing? We got owner financing in this deal. We got 10% owner financing. It was just awesome. The whole thing was just great for us. We got a little bit of work done at closing. The only thing was I think we probably could have paid a little bit less for the property, but since it was our first deal, and that's what I tell everybody, your first and second deals, you're not going to hit home runs. Although we did hit a home run in one sense, we probably overpaid by $25,000. We weren't as savvy. We did negotiate. But the thing is, we jumped into the game. We got our feet wet. We took our lumps. Septic system goes down a year later. Do you remember that? We had no CapEx. There was a lot of things we did wrong. But if you never take that first step, you can never go to the next step and to the next step. So it's really important that you find a deal that's got those parameters. And they're out there. You're going to have to look. People use the 110-1 rule. You look at 100 properties. You make offers on 10. 3 get accepted, and then you close on 1. Literally, I would say we were up in the, I wouldn't say 100, but I would say we looked at least 65, 70 deals before we found this one. So you've got to look at a lot of deals. And I don't mean just physically going and looking at them, analyzing numbers and, looking at stuff on LoopNet and wherever else you're looking at it, in the MLS and getting deals from brokers. You're going to have to, especially in the very beginning, when you don't have that niche. So me and Jake were looking at duplexes, tribes. We're looking at all different kinds of properties. But if you have that specific niche where you're picking a certain property, you're only going to analyze that property. Jake mentioned the mom and pop. The mom and pop properties that we like to look at, these people had no systems in place. They were renting to anybody. So they had no credit checks. They had no criminal background checks. They had no bookkeeping. So they had no QuickBooks. A lot of that stuff comes back to haunt you when you're trying to run a business, and that's what we're looking at. They're motivated, which is another big plus for mom and pop investor. They're just burned out. Mom and pops tend to be family-run businesses. They don't have to be, but they tend to be, family-run businesses that just want to get out of business. So that's what makes them motivated sellers, and that's what we lucked out, and that's what we like to look for. We like to look for owner financing. So that's what happened on this deal.
Yeah, and the maintenance is by committee. Uncle Larry might do the lawn this week, and Uncle Joe might do it next week, and this guy will do the plumbing, and that guy. I mean, it's just all over the board. They're going to go to the secondhand store for the air conditioning unit, on and on and on. But just to give you listeners out there a little idea, I mean, Gino's talking about hitting a home run. I mean, after a few years of owning, I mean, this was our first little deal that we did. I think we're pulling $3,000 a month out on this thing, and we have it refied. So we have zero money in this deal anymore, and we're cash flowing through, pulling $3,000 a month. So to me, being able to get through those that tough first year and to look back, I love this property.
Well, I can give a couple examples of difficulty with the property. I don't want to scare the listeners, but on our first deal, a few months after we bought the property, we had bed bugs. It was weekly renters, so we had to spend money on.
And those are not cheap.
On a radiating, what do you call it? I don't even know what it's called, but
the heat treatment. They bring in these heaters, and they basically just get the heat up to over 125 degrees or something for extended period of time, and just kills everything that could be living in the unit. So that is not cheap.
We got sued by a tenant for the bed bugs. A few months later, a tenant passed away in one of the apartments. That never happened to me. I've owned real estate. That's never happened to me before, and that's. I wouldn't say it's traumatic, but it's very saddening. I mean, somebody passes away on your property, you don't know what to do. It was difficult.
We were definitely taking our lumps for sure.
So when you first take over, you're going to document all this. Make sure you write all this down. Make sure you keep a nice little diary and a little log of what's going on, because you're going to look back at it and go, "Wow, I persevered. That I pushed through that. Nothing's going to stop me now."
So you want to jump into this recent deal that just fell into our lap?
Sure. Let's tell the audience how we found the deal. And let's actually just talk to them a little about mom and pops also, because this is also another mom and pop that fell into our lap. But how do we find mom and pops, Jake? Where's the best way to find them?
Well, in my opinion, and this is probably the easiest way, is you got to let your brokers know what you're looking for. And, the mom and pop thing for us just morphed out of what we were currently doing and what we were finding and where the opportunities were. But if your brokers know that's what you like and that's what you're looking for, it's out there. So, let them know that. There's other ways you can find it. But I really personally think in our experience, the best way is definitely to go through your brokers. But talk to your team members, talk to your insurance agents, talk to anyone else that's in the real estate game, and let them know this is what I'm looking for, and people will bring deals to you that way.
You can also look at for sale by owners. Just drive around your neighborhoods, see what properties have that deferred maintenance, see what properties are just in disarray. I mean, those properties are really all out there. If you can go to the town hall and find out any owners that are out of town owners, those are really good candidates for mom and pops. Or, I like to call mom and pops, but they're also motivated sellers. Mm-hmm. Motivated sellers are out there. That's what you really have to target. Because in real estate, if you're going to buy from somebody who has no motivation to sell, you're not going to get a deal. You're trying to solve a problem. That's what you have to focus on when you're dealing in real estate or any business. And you can solve a problem. The bigger the problem you solve, the better the payoff is. So that's what happened with our first deal. We had a big problem on that property. People weren't paying. There was a lot of criminal activity on the property. It's funny. Jake should have told you this story. When we first took over, mail lady didn't want to deliver mail. By the time a year passed by, she actually had mentioned to Jake, "Listen, I used to hate coming on this property in the daytime delivering the mail. Now it's a safe, nice neighborhood." So that was a huge problem that we solved. Once you solve that problem, your tenants are going to like staying on the property, and they're going to pay more rent. So that is a problem that you have to solve. When you solve those problems, you're going to make more money.
But also for your sellers out there too. These mom and pop sellers typically are burned out. They don't have systems in place. It's just not working for them anymore, and they're scared to answer their phone because they don't have someone in place to change the faucet or fix the toilet. So we actually solved a huge problem because no one else wanted in that first deal to buy that property, and they needed to get out. So we solved a huge problem for those owners. It was definitely a win-win.
Jay calls it the death spiral, and I love that definition, the death spiral. Basically, what happens, and I can't understand this for the life of me, but people do this. Landlords do this. They start not repairing their property. They have a tenant in their property for 3, 4, 5 years. They tell them, "Don't call me. Just don't be. I can't be bothered with you." and they undercharge for the rent. So let's say the rent is $500 a month. They'll charge a tenant $350 a month and say, just don't call me. I guess they've had the property for so many years. Their expenses are so low that whatever rent they collect, they're basically the cash flowing on. But sooner or later, that death spiral is going to start compounding and compounding to the point that it just gets to be overwhelming, and they get just inundated, and they just become so motivated that they want to sell. So.
And that creates opportunities for us, and then we provide the solution for the owners.
Yeah, that's that is really funny, the death spiral. Don't forget that. Anyway, this deal that Jake is talking about is a 16-unit deal that we currently have under contract right now, and it's a fantastic little property. How do we find this? We bought a property from these owners previously. It was 136 units. I'll let Jake talk about the 136-unit deal and let him segue into this one and how the mom and pop come in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, sure. This mom and pop actually was the third deal that we completed. As Gino said, it was 136 units, and it was a pair of brothers, a couple doctors whose father got into real estate and then passed some of it on, and the brothers kept building up the business. But the wife was actually the wife of one of the brothers was managing all the units, and it was 300 units at the time, or maybe 400. It was quite a bit. And it just it wasn't going that well. One of the brother that did not have the wife managing it, the other brother was getting frustrated with the brother whose wife was managing it, and it created a lot of family conflict, and basically it just got to the point where they couldn't do it anymore. A lot of deferred maintenance. Typical mom and pop is what we were describing before. So the deal had been on the market for I think 2 years. They listed it at $6.5 million, and the broker that we typically work with said, I think there might be an opportunity here. I was speaking to these guys where you can get maybe quite a discount. Long story short, we bought that property for $4,075,000, and yes, we paid a lot less than they had it listed for. But we closed quickly. We stuck to everything we said we were going to do, and we again provided a solution for these owners. So fast forward, I don't know. I guess it's been about 2 years since then, and we got a call from one of the brothers a couple weeks ago, basically saying, "Hey, look, we've pretty much liquidated everything. Got these 16 units left. Looking for $40,000 a door. You have any interest?" And I said, you know what, let me give you a call back. Called Gino up, and we talked about it a little bit and ran the numbers. Pretty much know what the expenses are because we have really comparable units and got the income from them. So we went back and said, it's kind of tough to run a 16-unit complex. It's a little far away from what we got. So it's and that's sort of the angle we took with them is that 16 units is a little smaller than what we're looking for, but we could probably do it at $600,000, which was a $40,000 discount. Keep in mind that units comparable to this in the same area are going for about $55,000 a door. So he thought about it, talked to his brother, called me back, and said, basically, I'm holding my nose, but I just want out. They were burned out. They don't want to own apartments anymore. The doctor does not want to hear it from his wife, coming home upset, having to deal with tenants, the whole 9 yards. So, we basically got this at a $15,000 discount per unit for the 16 units. Beautiful. One of them is only 8 years old, had a fire, and they rebuilt it. It's beautiful brick, brand new roofs, everything. So
there's a few things about this property that are pretty unique. The first one is when we closed on the one previous, we kept good negotiation with these guys. We didn't beat them up. They didn't beat us up. We treated them with respect. We had a good relationship with them. That's why they came to us on the second one. They didn't even put it on the market. They wanted to save the broker costs.
Oh, that's right.
And it was a mutual respect and a mutual understanding. We weren't out to get them, and we actually solved the problem for them. They didn't have to put it online. They didn't have to list it with a broker, waste 6 months of their lives. They want to get on with their lives. They're older. They just want to sell. So that's one of the problems that we solved. Another reason I think made this a mom and pop is 16 units. But what I liked about it was our mom and pops, we normally buy them at actual numbers. And these rents were really, I'll let Jake speak to this, but they were like $150 a unit less than what the market is. They know it. They're 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. and they're only renting for $590 a door, and they should be going for $695 per unit. Plus, we like to add on something called RUBS, which is called Ratio Utility Billing Systems, which allows us to pass through part of the utility cost of the tenant. So we add on another $30 to the rent. So you're talking about rents that we inherit at $590 a month, which we're going to increase to $725 a month with the RUBS. That's $130 per unit times 16 units. You guys see where the value is. We just increased the rental income by a lot per month. Second thing is the expenses. They're running this very inefficiently. They've only got 16 units there. We have a leasing agent. We're going to put this in part of our portfolio where the leasing agent is going to run this, and we're going to pay her that. What happens is they have to run out of the property. They only have garbage for that one property. We're going to lump all our garbage together, get a better rate for garbage. We have, our offices run more efficiently than theirs is. So we've really cut the expenses a lot on this property. We have a landscaping company that we use at our properties. It's more of an economy of scale kind of thing for us.
Yep, this just gets absorbed into our current portfolio. And even from day one, we're looking at about a 20% cash-on-cash return on this deal. Again, a smaller property, but it's 10.8% cap rate, and we think in a year we're going to get it from 113,000 to 135, 140. So that's really going to it's going to be a nice little property. It's going to fit right into our portfolio. We don't have to hire any more people. So it's just a nice little absorption into what we currently own. And by the time we get there, we're probably looking, in a year from now, we're probably looking at a cash-on-cash return of 40% or something silly like that. So that's when you force the appreciation and you drive those income numbers up, can really make a big difference 1 or 2 years out after repositioning.
And that's one of our strategies. It's actually getting that income up, reducing those expenses, which allows your net operating income to increase. And properties are based on net operating income. That's what the values are based on. This property, I would consider this a B property. It's in a fantastic neighborhood, fantastic area. I think it's in the best area that we'll be owning. So there's a couple things to say about that. It's a lot easier for us to rent these units. They're in high demand. How do I know what the rents are? We're pretty knowledgeable about the market. You can go on Zillow, type it up. We use a website called rentometer.com. It's rentometer.com. Type in the zip code. It'll tell you all the properties around, what the properties are renting for. It's very, very important for you to be knowledgeable about your market. You have to know your market, and you have to know what your income and expenses are going to be going forward. And, that's part of our framework. You buy it right. As you can see how much value we're creating. We're saying that we're buying this property at $600,000. I think within the next year, the property is going to be worth between $750,000 and $800,000. So we're going to be putting down 15% on this property because we have great relationship with the bankers. And the banker actually asked, "You're buying this at only $37.5 a door?" I think he was pretty taken aback by that number. He was pretty surprised. And everyone's out there always saying those deals aren't around, they're not around. You have to be patient. You have to look, and they're there.
Persistent too. You can't give up. You got to constantly be, looking for these things and calling your brokers.
And that's the thing. You have to be online every day, either on MLS, either in the classifieds, either in LoopNet, talking to the brokers. Go to the commercial brokers. You go to every brokerage, whether there's Cushman, Wakefield, Prudential, wherever you're using, Remax, Keller Williams. Go to the department and find what commercial broker they have and give him we call it an acquisition criteria sheet. Give him what you're looking to buy. Make, rapport with him. Take him out to lunch. But let him know what you're buying. So when a deal does pop up, he'll be calling you first. That's what happened with us here. There was no competition on this deal. So when there's no competition on this deal, that's where you're going to make your money. And the problem with the single families and the duplexes, there's so much competition there. There's so many people buying those properties that, the profit margins are small. But on a deal like this, we weren't competing. We were competing against ourselves. That's what we were competing with. So that's why we were able to buy it at such a great number.
And I forget, the one across the street, what were they selling per unit for? And it was not even as nice. I forget. Was it $65 per door?
Yeah, that's what they had. That's what they had listed, $65,000.
I don't think they're going to get it, but still, it just shows you
that
what that market's doing right now. But.
And I think $55,000 per unit is more reasonable. I still think if you purchase $55,000 per unit, I think it's too high. I would never. Retail investors do it. Guys who own REITs do it. But you're not making money there. You're basically just cash flowing. You're not creating wealth. You're not generating wealth. You're not using our model of buying right and then repositioning. Like I was saying, we're going to be able to pull all our money out of this deal and then a little bit more. So it's basically going to be called what my partner likes to call an annuity. It's just going to be cash flowing every month, and we're going to have an infinite return. That's what we like to see. We like to see that because there's no risk in this deal anymore because all of our money is out. So Jake and I have a tool. We like to call it the credibility book. We designed it after we bought our first property. We said, listen, we've got to get that business plan out there. We want to set something up where, we have a plan. We can hand it off to somebody. If you go on jakeandgino.com, you'll be able to pull up our credibility book. It lists all of our properties, has case studies on there. We're coming out with a product on udemy.com, where we're actually going to sell how to build your own credibility book. It's an awesome tool. We gave it to bankers. We gave it to brokers. One of the bankers I gave it to last week, he had never seen one before. He's been doing business for 15 years. He says he's had 3 or 4 guys, lending deals who have a thorough business plan. He says he's never seen anything like this. You bring this in, you have instant credibility. It's basically your business plan. So ours is investing in mom and pop apartments and talking about our niche, listing our case studies, listing why we invest in the market we're in, which is Knoxville, Tennessee. We love the job growth. We love it's a right to work state. We like the quality of living down there. We like the tenant base down there. These are all things that we list in our credibility book. So when we go target one of these properties, the banker looks at it and goes, well, you're a natural fit here. You guys know what you're doing in this property. It'll be a lot easier to lend. We do get 15% down on a lot of these deals because bankers know there's less risk involved because we're buying them right and we're already increasing the revenue of these properties after year 1. So they know that we have a lot of credibility doing this stuff.
Yeah, and it's just especially for you guys starting out, bankers get skittish when they don't know you or you're just walking in off the street. So speak to your brokers, get a referral from your broker to the bankers that they like to use, and go for the banks that are looking to grow because they're going to give you the most aggressive terms. And then when you finally get that meeting, bring your credibility book in so you can say, look, this is the kind of units I'm looking for, this is the kind of tenant I'm looking to rent to, and these are the kind of returns I'm expecting to get, and have the numbers all laid out there for them. This is what you need to do so the banks take you seriously. It's extremely important.
And I think what a credibility book did for me and Jake was it really made us laser focused. We're pretty too focused individuals. But what happens is when you start writing stuff on paper, something happens in your conscious, your subconscious level where you start focusing on that particular task. So we just started focusing on these properties and all of a sudden they start popping up out of nowhere. Either people start contacting us or we just start seeing them. And it just gives you that focus of what you want to do. It's like writing your mission statement and you have a plan and a detailed course of action to take.
So if you guys want and you're interested in the credibility toolkit, go to jakeandgino.com. You can actually download a template for free. Get yourself started. If you guys have any questions, hit us up on Facebook, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. On
our next call, Jake and I are going to be talking about our second part of the framework, which is manage right. Huge, very important task. You need to know how to manage your properties, whether you want to self-manage like we're still doing, or you want to use a management company. We have great ideas for both strategies. We want to see you guys on that call.
All right. Well, Gino, that wraps it up here, and we will talk to you on the next call when we dive further into our manage right portion of the framework.
Jake, I had a lot of fun, all right? I will catch up with you during the week, okay?
Thanks, Gino.
Thanks.
We trust that you enjoyed the Wheelbarrow Profits podcast. Visit jakeandgino.com, your one-stop shop for everything multifamily. See you next time when Jake and Gino share more of their investing secrets with you.